Welcome to Piers Uncensored. Sir Keir Starmer may well be the next British Prime Minister. Labour leaders a hearty lead in the polls. After 13 years of Tory rule with 3 Prime Ministers in one chaotic year recently, his path to power is clear. But he still has to prove he knows what matters to the British people. And today, I believe he made a massive miscalculation. He's reportedly briefed his top team to avoid talking about social issues, woke issues, because apparently the public doesn't care about them. He couldn't be more wrong. The public does care, and with good reason. Here's a reminder of what Elon Musk says about woke.
Welcome back to UK Insider, the only place where we dissect the political circus with the clinical precision of a surgeon and the biting wit of a pub regular who's had one too many. Picture this. The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, finally gets to enjoy a bit of post-Christmas pudding, feeling smug about a diplomatic win, only to have Piers Morgan crash the party like a heat-seeking missile made of pure, unadulterated outrage. It wasn't just a disagreement, it was a digital execution. We are talking about the Alaa Abd el Fattah scandal, a story that has gone from a humanitarian triumph to a national security facepalm faster than you can say vetted by the civil service. Quick favor, if you're loving this, hit that subscribe button. Over 92% of viewers haven't yet. It's free, takes a second, and means the world to us. Thanks if you did. Now back to the show. Now, let's set the stage, shall we? It is Boxing Day. While most of us were nursing hangovers and wondering if we could stomach another turkey sandwich, the Prime Minister was busy on X, formerly known as Twitter for those of us who still have souls, celebrating the return of Alaa Abd el Fattah to British soil. Starmer was practically glowing. He spoke of profound relief, he paid tribute to the family, and he made sure everyone knew that this case had been a top priority for his government since they took the keys to number 10. It was the ultimate good guy Keir moment. Or so he thought. You see, in politics, there is a golden rule. Before you wrap your arms around someone in a public display of affection, make sure they haven't spent the last decade tweeting things that would make a Victorian villain blush. Unfortunately for Sir Keir, his team seems to have forgotten how to use the search bar. Within 48 hours, the hero's welcome turned into a PR dumpster fire that could be seen from space. Because while Starmer was tweeting about relief, the rest of the country was reading El Fattah's unearthed posts where he branded British people dogs and monkeys, called for the killing of Zionists, and openly boasted about his hatred for white people. It is the kind of oversight that makes you wonder if the vetting process at Downing Street consists of asking, "Are you a nice person?" and accepting yes as a legally binding contract. And who better to point out this catastrophic lapse in judgment than the man who lives for a televised scrap? Piers Morgan didn't just knock on the door, he kicked it down, set the hallway on fire, and demanded to know why the Prime Minister was rolling out the red carpet for a man who seemingly despises the very ground he's now walking on.
Today, Starmer dramatically upped the ante by announcing that he will resign if police find him over the apparently illicit beer and curry soiree that he shared with his campaign staff. It's an amazingly high-stakes gamble, and of course would put Johnson under huge pressure to do the same if he does have to quit. But I suspect hypocrisy and lying might finish them both off, whatever happens. Boris broke the rules he set for the rest of us and then repeatedly lied about it. Starmer said that Boris must resign when police investigated. Now the same thing's happened to him, but he hasn't resigned. He just committed to resign.
If you thought the Boxing Day sales were chaotic, they have nothing on the absolute carnage that erupted when Piers Morgan saw Starmer's delighted post. Now we all know Piers. He is a man who could find a reason to argue with a statue, but this time, he didn't even have to try. He took Starmer's tweet, reshared it to his millions of followers, and essentially served the Prime Minister's head on a silver platter. Morgan's response was a masterclass in righteous indignation. He called it the ultimate symbol of government incompetence. And honestly, can you blame him? It is one thing to campaign for the release of a British citizen on humanitarian grounds. It is quite another for the Prime Minister to personally pay tribute to a man who has historically used his platform to incite violence and spread racial vitriol. Morgan's point was simple but devastating. All Starmer's team had to do was check the man's social media history. We aren't talking about deep state secrets hidden in a vault in Cairo. We are talking about public posts. It is the digital equivalent of inviting someone to your house for dinner and only realizing they hate your entire family once they start throwing the cutlery at your nan. The backlash was instantaneous. The narrative shifted from Starmer rescues activist to Starmer welcomes man who hates Brits. It is a classic political trap, and Keir walked into it with a smile on his face and a top priority badge on his lapel. The irony is thicker than a London fog. Here is a Prime Minister who has spent months talking about cleaning up politics and returning to standards, yet he's publicly championing a man who referred to the very people Starmer represents as dogs and monkeys. It's like watching a goalkeeper celebrate a save while the ball is actually trickling slowly into the back of his own net. The energy in Westminster shifted from festive cheer to how on earth do we spin this? And as the numbers started to climb and the screenshots of El Fattah's old posts began to flood the timeline, the profound relief Starmer mentioned started to look more like a profound political migraine. But wait, the plot thickens. Like a villain in a Scooby-Doo episode who realizes they've been caught, Allah Abdel Fattah decided it was time for some damage control. On the morning of December 29th, he issued an apology. Now, in the world of apologies, there are sincere regrets, and then there are "I got caught and my citizenship is at risk" regrets. El Fattah's statement was a fascinating piece of linguistic gymnastics. He admitted the posts were shocking and hurtful, but he also claimed they were twisted out of their meaning. Ah, the classic "you're reading it wrong" defense. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off. He blamed the anger and frustrations of a young man during regional crises like the wars in Iraq and Gaza. He called them online insult battles. It is a relatable analogy if your idea of an online insult battle involves calling for the death of entire groups of people. Most of us just argue about whether pineapple belongs on pizza. We don't usually drift into dogs and monkeys territory. The problem for El Fattah, and by extension for Keir Starmer, is that these weren't just one-off lapses in judgment, they were a pattern. And while people can change over a decade, the timing of this epiphany is, shall we say, convenient. He's back in the UK. He's facing calls to have his British citizenship revoked, and suddenly he understands how hurtful his words were. It's funny how a potential one-way ticket back to a prison cell can really sharpen one's moral compass, isn't it? Starmer now finds himself in a position that is beyond awkward. He is tethered to this apology. If he accepts it, he looks weak and desperate to justify his earlier praise. If he distances himself, he admits he made a massive blunder in the first place. It is a political Sophie's choice, except both options involve being shouted at by Piers Morgan on national television. The sheer speed at which this victory soured is a testament to the volatility of modern politics. One day you're the human rights hero. The next you're the guy who didn't Google his own top priority.
Do you know, he's had 4 years, he can't tell you what he would do differently because he doesn't have a plan. And if you don't have a plan, you can't deliver any change. Nothing will change for the better, whereas I can do that for people.
Here's what I say at the end, is that Keir Starmer has resolutely not delivered on his pledges to do an interview with me for Piers Morgan Uncensored. You've now done 2 in the space of the last year. I appreciate that. I think you do put yourself up to be held to account more than he does.
Starmer sat across from Piers with all the confidence of a damp paper bag in a monsoon, perhaps imagining this was his big chance to shine.
The fallout of this isn't just a Twitter spat, it is a full-blown crisis of credibility. Let's look at the numbers for a second. We are talking about millions of views on these posts. The public perception of Starmer's judgment has taken a hit that no amount of focus grouping can fix overnight. When Morgan says the government is incompetent, he isn't just throwing insults, he's pointing at a visible crack in the armor. The British public is famously tolerant, but calling them dogs and monkeys while being rescued by their Prime Minister is a bit of a stretch for most people's live and let live attitude. There are now serious high-level calls for El Fattah's citizenship to be revoked. This puts the Home Office in a nightmare scenario. Do they follow the law and the public outcry, or do they protect the Prime Minister's top priority project? It is a high-stakes game of political chess where Starmer has already lost his queen and is currently trying to defend his king with a plastic fork. And let's talk about the white people comments. In an era where identity politics is a literal minefield, for a prime minister to celebrate someone who has expressed a hatred for white people is, to put it mildly, a bit of a gaffe. It's like a vegan chef accidentally serving a steak and then wondering why the customers are upset. Starmer prides himself on being the adult in the room, the man of detail, the lawyer who reads the fine print. But here, he missed the headline, the fine print, and the giant flashing neon sign. Piers Morgan's destruction of Starmer wasn't just about the tweets themselves, it was about the lack of due diligence. It exposed a government that seems more interested in the vibe of a good news story than the reality of the people they are promoting. It's the Instagram versus reality of British governance. On Instagram, it's a heartwarming story of a family reunited. In reality, it's a man with a history of vitriolic rhetoric being handed a golden ticket by a prime minister who was too lazy to check his feed. So where does Sir Keir go from here? He's currently in explode mode, defensive, frustrated, and likely looking for someone in his communications team to fire. But the damage is done. Every time Starmer talks about British values or standing against hate, his opponents will simply point to Boxing Day 2025. They will point to the dogs and monkeys and the profound relief. The irony is that El Fattah's apology might actually make things worse for Starmer. By admitting the tweets were shocking and hurtful, El Fattah has confirmed that Morgan was right. He has validated the outrage. If the person who wrote the tweets says they are indefensible, how can the Prime Minister defend his decision to prioritize that person's case without even a hint of a caveat? It is a masterclass in how not to do politics. It's a reminder that in the age of the internet, nothing is truly buried, and the ghost of Christmas past will always come back to haunt you, especially if that ghost has a verified X account and a penchant for online insult battles. Starmer wanted a win to end the year. Instead, he got a lesson in digital literacy from Piers. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a gift that keeps on giving. The British political landscape is currently a mess of "I should have known better" and "how did we miss this?" While the Prime Minister tries to pivot back to his New Year's resolutions, the rest of the country is left wondering how many other top priorities come with a side of racial slurs and calls for violence. It is a bold new world, and Keir Starmer is currently just trying to survive in it without getting ratioed into oblivion again. The saga of Allah Abdel Fattah and Keir Starmer is far from over, as the calls for revocation grow louder and the dogs and monkeys quote becomes a permanent fixture in the political lexicon. Downing Street is going to have to do a lot more than just pay tribute to make this go away. They've turned a human rights case into a cultural lightning rod, and the sparks are flying everywhere. Piers might be a divisive figure, but in this instance, he held up a mirror to the government, and the reflection wasn't pretty. It showed a lack of foresight, a lack of vetting, and a desperate need for a better social media manager. As we head into the new year, the lesson is clear. If you're going to celebrate a hero, make sure they haven't spent their spare time insulting the very people paying for their flight home. It is witty, it is bold, and it is a total disaster for number 10. But for us, it's pure entertainment. Keep your eyes peeled, because if this is how the year is ending, 2026 is going to be an absolute riot. Thank you for watching UK Insider. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments. Should Allah Abdel Fattah keep his citizenship, or has he tweeted his way out of a British passport? We'll see you in the next one.